Hey there, viewer. Hi, hi, hi. I'm so excited you're here with me today. Before we start the super cool story, I've got something fun for you to do. Grab your pencil or your phone, and in the comments below, tell me, where are you watching from right now? Are you at home? At school? Maybe sitting on a big comfy couch? I want to know. Oh, and one more thing, if you like crazy, wild stories that make you go whoa, then smash that subscribe button real quick. It's right there, boom. Hit it. I've got an awesome tale for you today, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single second of it. Okay, ready for a little question to get us started? Here it is. Have you ever had a neighbor who just wouldn't mind their own business? You know, the kind of person who's always peeking over the fence or asking nosy questions. Maybe they're loud, or maybe they're bossy. Tell me about it in the comments. I bet you've got some funny stories. Stick with me, because this story I'm about to tell you, oh boy, it's wild. It's got everything: sneaky surprises, a bossy lady, and even a big twist you'll never guess. Let's jump in. My name's Jake Riley. Hi. I'm just a regular guy, you know? I like simple stuff like playing with my dog, eating pizza, and watching the sunset over my new house. Yep, I just moved into the super nice neighborhood a little while ago. Picture it, cute little houses all in a row, green grass everywhere, and flowers popping up like happy surprises. The sky was blue, the birds were singing, and I thought, wow, this place is perfect. I had my tiny house with a big yard, and I was ready to make it my own. I even got a mailbox shaped like a dog. How cool is that? Everything felt so good, like the start of a big adventure. But here's the thing: no one told me about her. Nope, not a single person warned me. Her name was Linda Grayson, and oh man, she was something else. Linda was the boss of the HOA. Do you know what an HOA is? It's like a club for people who live in a neighborhood. They make rules to keep everything neat and tidy, like, no loud music, or keep your grass short. Stuff like that. Linda was the president of this club, which means she was in charge. And let me tell you, she loved being in charge. She walked around like she was the queen of the whole street, holding a clipboard tight in her hands like it was her crown. Linda wasn't just bossy, though. She had this look, a glare so mean it could scare a big tough dog away. Her eyes were sharp, like little knives, and when she stared at you, it felt like she could melt you into a puddle. She'd march up and down the street, checking everyone's houses, making sure nobody broke her rules. If your trash can was out too long, bam, she'd write it down. If your flowers weren't the right color, pow, she'd leave a note telling you to fix it. Linda acted like she owned every single house, every blade of grass, every mailbox, everything. Maybe she even thought she did. When I first moved in, I didn't know any of this. I was just happy to be there. My house was small but cozy, with white walls and a big front porch where I could sit and wave at people walking by. I had a yard with a fence around it, not a tall fence, just a little one to keep my dog, Buddy, from running off. Buddy's a goofy pup with floppy ears and a wagging tail, and he loves chasing squirrels. I wanted to make my yard fun for him, so I got this idea. Hey, I thought, why not paint my fence a cool color? I didn't want boring old brown or plain white. Nope. I picked a bright, happy blue like the sky on a summer day. It sounded so fun, right? So, one sunny afternoon, I grabbed a can of blue paint and a big brush. I put on my old jeans and a silly hat, and I got to work. Dip, swoosh, dip, swoosh. The paint went on smooth and bright. Buddy ran around barking, like he was cheering me on. Good job, Jake, he seemed to say. By the time I was done, the fence looked awesome. It wasn't just a fence anymore, it was my fence, full of personality. I stepped back, wiped the sweat off my forehead, and smiled. This is home, I said to myself. I couldn't wait to sit on my porch and watch the world go by with my bright blue fence shining in the sun. That's when I met Linda. Well, I didn't meet her, she just showed up like a storm cloud on a perfect day. It was the very next morning after I painted my fence. The sun was up, the birds were chirping, and I was drinking a glass of orange juice on my porch. Everything was calm and happy. Then bang, bang, bang. Someone was pounding on my door so hard I thought it might fall off. I jumped up, spilling a little juice on my shirt, and ran to see who it was. There she stood, Linda Grayson. She didn't say hi. She didn't smile. She just pointed at my fence and yelled, "What is that?" Her voice was loud and grumpy, like a teacher scolding a kid for talking in class. I blinked at her, confused. It's my fence," I said. "I painted it blue." Linda's face turned red, like a tomato about to pop. She held up her clipboard and shook it at me. "That color is not allowed," she shouted. "It's against the rules. Change it right now." I scratched my head. "Rules? What rules?" I asked. Linda huffed and flipped open her clipboard. She showed me a big book full of tiny words, her HOA rule book. "See," she said, poking the page with her finger. "Fences can only be white, brown, or gray. No blue. You're breaking the rules, Jake Riley." I looked at her, then at my fence. It still looked awesome to me. "It's just a color," I said, trying to stay nice. "What's the big deal?" But Linda didn't care. She crossed her arms and glared even harder. "Fix it," she snapped, "or you'll be sorry." Then she turned and marched away, her shoes clicking on the sidewalk like little angry drums. I stood there, watching her go. My orange juice was still dripping on the floor, and Buddy was hiding behind my legs, peeking at her like she was a monster. I didn't get it. It was just a fence. Why was she so mad? I shook my head and laughed a little. "She's crazy," I told Buddy. "Don't worry, we're keeping our blue fence." Buddy wagged his tail, and I thought that was the end of it. Oh boy, was I wrong. See, Linda wasn't just some grumpy lady with a clipboard. She had plans, big, sneaky plans. And me? I wasn't just some regular guy with a cool fence. I had a secret, a really big one, hiding right under my silly hat. Linda thought she could boss me around, scare me into doing what she wanted. She had no idea who she was messing with. That blue fence? It was just the start. Something huge was coming her way, and she'd never see it sneaking up. The neighborhood looked so quiet that day, with its pretty houses and green lawns. Kids rode their bikes down the street, and a lady watered her flowers across the road. Everything seemed peaceful, like a picture in a happy storybook. But under all that calm, something was bubbling. Linda was watching me, and I was watching her right back. She thought she was the boss of everything, but I had a trick ready, a surprise so big it flipped her whole world upside down. What was my secret? How did a guy like me, with a dog and a blue fence, have something to hide? And why was Linda so mad about a little paint? You'll find out soon, I promise. This story's just getting started, and it's going to get wilder with every step. Picture me standing there on my porch, smiling to myself as Linda stomped off. Picture her thinking she'd won, not knowing I was already one move ahead. The sun was shining, the fence was blue, and the adventure was about to explode. So, what do you think so far? Did I paint my fence blue just to make it pretty, or was there something else going on? And what about Linda? Why was she so mean? Stick with me, because the answers are coming, and they're going to be big. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if someone told you to change something you love about your house? I can't wait to hear your ideas. Let's keep going, this is only the beginning. Okay, let's dive into the messy part of my story. This is where things start to get tricky and a little bit crazy. It all started with my fence. Yep, that's right, my fence. I painted it a bright, cheerful blue. It wasn't anything wild or scary, just a happy color that made my yard feel like mine. I wanted my little house to stand out a bit, you know? Like when you wear a fun shirt to school because it makes you smile. Blue is my favorite color, it's like the sky on a perfect day or the ocean in a picture book. So, I grabbed a can of paint, a big brush, and went to work. When I finished, I stepped back and looked at it. Wow! My fence looked so cool, like it was saying, "Hey, Jake lives here." I thought it was the best idea ever. But oh boy, I was so wrong. That blue fence? It turned out to be a huge mistake. I didn't know it yet, but trouble was coming, and it was coming fast. The very next morning, I was still sleepy, rubbing my eyes and sipping some juice on my porch. My dog, Buddy, was sniffing the grass, wagging his tail like always. It was a sunny day, with birds chirping and a soft breeze blowing. Everything felt nice and calm until it didn't. Bang, bang, bang. Someone started pounding on my door so loud it made me jump. My juice splashed a little, and Buddy barked once, then hid behind me. "Who's that?" I whispered to him. I put down my glass and walked to the door, my heart beating a tiny bit faster. I opened it, and there she was, Linda Grayson, the HOA lady. She didn't look happy. Not one bit. Her face was all scrunched up, like she'd just eaten a sour lemon. She didn't say good morning or hi, Jake. Nope. She just pointed at my fence and yelled, "That color's not approved." Her voice was sharp and loud, like a teacher catching you running in the hall. She held up her big HOA rulebook like a giant stack of papers she always carried around and waved it right in my face. "This," she barked, poking the book with her finger. "This says fences can only be white, brown, or gray. No blue. You broke the rules, Jake." I stood there, blinking at her. Approved. What did that even mean? It was my fence, in my yard. I didn't get why she cared so much. I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. "Linda," I said, nice and slow, "it's just a fence." I even smiled a little, even though my teeth were gritted tight. I didn't want to fight, I just wanted her to chill out. But Linda? Oh, she wasn't chilling. Not even close. Her eyes got all narrow, like a cat about to pounce, and she leaned closer. "Just a fence," she snapped back. "You'll regret this, Jake." "I'll make sure of it." Her voice was low now, sneaky and mean, like she had a secret plan. Then she turned around and stomped off, her clipboard swinging in her hand. I watched her go, my mouth open a little. Regret it? What was she talking about? I looked at Buddy, who was peeking out from behind my legs. "She's nuts," I said to him. He wagged his tail, like he agreed. I shrugged my shoulders and laughed. What's the worst she can do, right? Yell some more. I picked up my juice and went back to my porch. The fence still looked awesome to me, bright blue and happy. I figured Linda was just grumpy and she'd get over it. Oh man, I had no idea what was coming. No clue at all. The next day, I woke up to a funny feeling. The sun was shining, and everything looked normal outside, kids riding bikes, a lady walking her dog, but something felt off. I stepped onto my porch and looked around. That's when I saw it, a little piece of paper taped to my mailbox. I walked over and pulled it off. It was a note, written in big, angry letters. "Change the fence or else," it said. No name, but I knew who wrote it. Linda. I crumpled the note in my hand and shook my head. "She's not giving up," I muttered. Buddy barked, like he was telling her to go away. I thought that might be it, just a silly note. But nope, Linda was just getting started. Later that day, I was in my yard tossing a ball for Buddy when I heard a noise: click, click, click. I turned around, and there she was, standing on the sidewalk, taking pictures of my fence with her phone. She didn't even try to hide it. Click, 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 she snapped away, her face all serious like she was a detective in a movie. "Hey, Linda," I called out. "What are you doing?" She didn't answer. She just glared at me, then walked off, her shoes tapping the ground hard. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Why was she so mad? It was just paint. I peeked out my window before bed, and guess what? Linda was back. She was standing across the street, staring at my house in the dark. Her clipboard was still in her hand, and she was writing something down. The street light made her look spooky, like a shadow with mean eyes. I closed my curtain fast. "This is getting weird," I whispered to Buddy. He growled a little, like he didn't trust her either. The next morning, there was another note on my mailbox. This one said, "You were warned. Fix it now." I stared at it, my stomach feeling all twisty. Linda wasn't playing around, she really hated my fence. But why? I started to wonder if there was more to this. Maybe it wasn't just about the color. Maybe Linda had some big reason to be so bossy. I didn't know it yet, but I was right, there was more. A lot more. Days went by, and Linda kept coming. Sometimes she'd knock on my door again, bang, 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 yelling about rules. Other times, she'd just stand by my fence, staring at it like it was the worst thing she'd ever seen. One afternoon, I caught her talking to my neighbor, Mr. Tom, pointing at my yard and shaking her head. Mr. Tom looked nervous, like he didn't want to be part of it. When Linda walked away, I waved at him. "What did she say?" I asked. He shrugged. "She says your fence is ruining the neighborhood," he mumbled, then hurried inside. Ruining the neighborhood? It was one little fence. I started feeling eyes on me all the time. Neighbors would peek out their windows when I walked by, whispering to each other. Kids stopped riding their bikes near my house. It was like Linda was turning everyone against me, all because of some blue paint. But here's the thing, I wasn't scared. Not really. Sure, Linda was loud and mean, but I wasn't going to let her win. That fence was mine, and I liked it. Plus, I had a little secret she didn't know about. Something big. Something that'd make her wish she'd left me alone. One day, I decided to talk to her. I saw her marching down the street with her clipboard, and I ran out to meet her. "Linda," I said, keeping my voice nice, "can we talk about this? It's just a fence. Why is it such a big deal?" She stopped and turned to me, her eyes cold. "It's not just a fence, Jake," she said. "It's about rules. Order. You don't belong here if you can't follow them." Then she smiled, a tiny, sneaky smile that made my skin feel prickly. "You'll see soon," she added, and walked away. You'll see soon? What did that mean? I stood there, watching her go, my mind spinning. Linda wasn't just mad, she was planning something. Something big and tricky. I could feel it. The air felt heavy, like a storm was coming, even though the sky was clear. I looked at my blue fence, still bright and happy, and made up my mind. She's not changing me, I told Buddy. No way. He barked, like he was on my team. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. Linda's words stuck in my head, "You'll regret this." She wasn't going to stop with notes and pictures. She had something up her sleeve, something mean. And me? I wasn't just going to sit there and wait for it. My secret was ready, bubbling under the surface, waiting for the right moment. Linda thought she was the boss, but she didn't know who she was really messing with. The tension was growing, like a rubber band stretching tighter and tighter. My little house didn't feel so peaceful anymore. Every knock, every shadow, made me wonder what Linda would do next. But I wasn't backing down. That blue fence was staying, and I was ready to fight back quietly, sneakily, in my own way. What was Linda planning? And what was my secret? Oh, you'll find out soon. This story's heating up, and the fun's just beginning. So there I was, standing in my yard, staring at my bright blue fence. Linda's words were still bouncing around in my head. "You'll regret this, Jake." Regret it? How? I didn't get it. It was just paint on some wood. But the way she said it, with that sneaky little smile, made me feel all jittery inside. Like when you know a big thunderstorm's coming, and the sky's still clear, but you can feel it in the air. I patted Buddy's head and muttered, "She's up to something, isn't she?" He tilted his head and barked once, like he was saying, "Yup, watch out." The next few days got even weirder. Linda didn't knock on my door anymore, but she didn't leave me alone either. Oh no, she was everywhere. I'd look out my window in the morning, and there she'd be, walking slow past my house, her eyes locked on my fence. She'd scribble something on her clipboard, then march off like she was on a mission. One time, I was watering my grass, just spraying the hose around, making little rainbows in the sun, when I heard that click, click, click again. I turned fast, and sure enough, Linda was back with her phone, snapping more pictures. "Linda!" I shouted. "Why are you taking pictures of my fence?" She didn't even look up. She just kept clicking, then walked away without a word. It wasn't just the pictures that made me nervous. It was the notes. Every morning, I'd find a new one taped to my mailbox. "Change it," one said. "You're in trouble," said another. One even had big red letters that yelled, "Last warning." Last warning? For what? I started collecting them in a little pile on my kitchen table, like clues in a mystery game. Buddy would sniff them and growl, like he knew they were bad news. "What's she gonna do, boy?" I asked him. "Yell at me some more." I tried to laugh, but it didn't feel funny anymore. Then the neighbors started acting funny too. You know how I said they used to wave at me and say hi? Well, that stopped. Now, when I walked Buddy down the street, people would peek out their windows and pull the curtains shut real fast. One day, I saw Mrs. Carter. She's this nice old lady who always gave Buddy treats, talking to Linda on her porch. Linda was pointing at my house, waving her arms like she was super mad. Mrs. Carter nodded, but she looked scared. When I waved at her later, she didn't wave back. She just hurried inside and closed her door. What's going on? I whispered to Buddy. He whined, like he didn't know either. I started feeling like I didn't fit in anymore. My happy little house, with its blue fence and dog-shaped mailbox, didn't feel so happy now. It was like Linda was painting a big target on me, and everyone was watching. One afternoon, I was tossing a ball for Buddy in the yard when a kid rode by on his bike. He slowed down, stared at my fence, and yelled, "My mom says you're a troublemaker." Then he sped off, tires squeaking. A troublemaker? Me. I just wanted a cool fence. That night, I sat on my porch with a soda, looking at the stars. The neighborhood was quiet, no kids playing, no dogs barking, just the wind rustling the trees. But I couldn't relax. I kept thinking about Linda, her mean glare, her clipboard, her creepy smile. She's not gonna stop, I said out loud. Buddy put his head on my lap, like he was trying to cheer me up. Don't worry, I told him. I've got a plan. See, that's the thing. Linda thought she had all the power, but I wasn't just some guy with a dog and a fence. I had something she didn't know about. A secret. And it was starting to itch inside me, ready to come out. The next day, things got even crazier. I was eating breakfast cereal with extra marshmallows, my favorite, when I heard a loud honk outside. I ran to the window and peeked out. A big white truck was parked right in front of my house. Two guys in orange vests jumped out, carrying ladders and buckets. One of them had a can of white paint. My heart sank. Were they here to paint over my fence? I bolted outside in my pajamas, still holding my cereal spoon. "Hey!" I yelled. "What are you doing?" The guy with the paint can turned to me. "You Jake Riley?" he asked. I nodded, my stomach all twisty. "We got a call," he said. "Someone says your fence breaks the rules. We're here to fix it, paint it white." I shook my head fast. "No way. Who told you to do that?" The guy shrugged. "Some lady from the HOA. Said it's an emergency." "Linda." Of course it was Linda. I took a deep breath and said, "Don't touch my fence. It's mine, and I like it blue." The guys looked at each other, confused. We already got paid," one said. "We're supposed to start now." I felt my face get hot. "Paid? By who?" I asked. They didn't answer, just pointed down the street. I turned, and there she was, Linda, standing on the sidewalk, watching with that sneaky smile. She waved her clipboard like a flag, like she'd already won. "Leave it alone," I shouted at the guys. "I didn't ask for this." They mumbled something, then climbed back in their truck and drove off. Linda's smile disappeared. She glared at me, then scribbled something on her clipboard and stormed away. I stood there, breathing hard, my spoon still in my hand. Buddy ran out and barked at where Linda had been. "She's not playing fair," I said to him. "She's trying to force me." I looked at my fence, still blue, still mine, and felt a fire in my chest. Linda wasn't just bossy anymore. She was mean, sneaky, and trying to take something I loved. But I wasn't going to let her. No way. That's when I started watching her closer. Every time she walked by, I'd peek out my window. Every note she left, I'd save. I even started writing stuff down myself, like when she took pictures or talked to neighbors. Why? Because I knew she was building up to something bigger. "That you'll see soon," she said. It wasn't just talk. She had a plan, and I had to figure it out before she got me. One sunny afternoon, I was raking leaves in my yard when I saw her again. She was standing by my fence, not moving, just staring at it. Her phone was in her hand, but she wasn't taking pictures this time. She was talking to someone quiet, like she didn't want anyone to hear. I ducked behind a bush and listened. "Yes," she said into the phone. "It's time." He won't listen. We'll make him. Then she hung up and walked off, her clipboard swinging. Make me? Make me what? My heart started pounding. This was bad. Really bad. I ran inside and locked the door, even though it was daytime. Buddy followed me, whining like he could feel it too. She's got something big coming, I told him. But we're not giving up. I looked at my pile of notes on the table, then out at my blue fence. Linda thought she could scare me, push me around, make me change. She thought she was the queen of the neighborhood, and I was just some guy who didn't matter. But she was wrong. See, I wasn't just Jake Riley, the guy with the cool fence and the goofy dog. I had something hidden, something she'd never guess. And every time she glared at me, every note she left, every sneaky phone call she made, it pushed me closer to using it. The tension was thick now, like fog you could cut with a spoon. Linda was coming for me, and I was ready to fight back. What was her big plan? And what was my secret? Oh, it's all coming soon, just wait. Okay, things were getting wild now. Days went by, lots of days, and Linda turned into my personal nightmare. Seriously, she was everywhere, like a pesky fly you can't shoo away. She'd stalk by my house all the time, walking super slow with her phone in her hand. Snap, 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 she'd take pictures of my blue fence like it was some big crime scene in a detective show. I'd peek out my window and see her standing there, clicking away, her face all serious and grumpy. Why? I had no idea. It was just a fence, not a bank she thought I robbed. And that wasn't all. She started leaving notes, nasty little notes taped right to my mailbox. I'd wake up, shuffle outside in my slippers, and there they'd be, flapping in the wind. Fix it or face the consequences, one said in big, mean letters. Another one shouted, "You're in big trouble now." They were written with a fat black marker, like she was so mad she pressed extra hard. I'd pull them off and stuff them in my pocket, but they kept coming day after day. My dog, Buddy, would sniff the mailbox and growl, like he knew Linda was up to no good. The neighbors noticed too. They started whispering to each other when I walked by with Buddy. I'd hear little bits, "That fence, Linda's mad, what's he doing?" And then they'd stop talking when I got close. It was like I'd turned into the weird kid at school everyone stares at. I could feel the tension building, like when you're blowing up a balloon and it's about to pop. My quiet little street wasn't so quiet anymore, not with Linda around, stirring up trouble. But here's the thing, I wasn't just some pushover. Nope, not me. Linda thought I was just Jake, the guy with the blue fence and the goofy dog, someone she could boss around and scare. She was so wrong. I had a little secret, something sneaky and big that she didn't know about. And oh boy, it was itching to come out. It was like a surprise gift I hadn't unwrapped yet, waiting for the perfect moment to flip her world upside down. She had no clue what was coming, and that made me smile a little, even when she was being her meanest. One afternoon, things got even stranger. I was inside, eating a peanut butter sandwich, when I heard a funny noise outside, kind of a rustle, like leaves moving. I tiptoed to the window and peeked through the curtain. There she was, Linda. She was peeking over my fence, her head just poking up above the top, like a sneaky turtle. She was muttering to herself, talking so quiet I couldn't hear the words. Her clipboard was in one hand, and she was scribbling fast, like she'd found gold or something. What was she looking at? My fence? My yard? Buddy's chew toys? I couldn't take it anymore. I dropped my sandwich, sorry, peanut butter, and marched outside. Hey, Linda. I called, stepping onto the porch. What's your deal? She froze, like a kid caught sneaking cookies, then turned to me real slow. Her eyes were sharp, but then she smirked a little twisty smile that made my tummy feel funny. You'll see soon enough, she said, her voice all smooth and sneaky. Then she walked off, her shoes clicking on the sidewalk. That's when I noticed something odd. As she walked away, she kept glancing at her phone, not to take pictures, but like she was checking it over and over. Was she texting someone? Waiting for a call? Her thumb kept tapping the screen, and she'd look at it, then at my house, then back at the phone. What was she up to? My brain started buzzing with questions. This wasn't just about my fence anymore, I could feel it. Something bigger was cooking, and Linda was stirring the pot. I decided right then, I had to keep my eyes peeled. No more just waiting around, I was going to watch her like a hawk. The next day, I started my own little spy game. I grabbed a notebook, nothing fancy, just an old one from my junk drawer, and a pencil with a chewed up end. Every time Linda came by, I'd write it down. 10 Linda took 3 pictures, I scribbled. Noon left a note that says time's up. I even drew little stick figures of her with her clipboard and mean face. Buddy sat next to me, watching me write, his tail thumping the floor. We're detectives now, huh? I said to him. He barked, like he was ready to solve the mystery too. And boy, did I see stuff. Linda was busier than a bee in spring. One morning, she stopped by Mr. Tom's house next door. She knocked hard, and when he opened the door, she started talking fast, pointing at my fence. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught bits. Rules. Problem. Fix it? Mr. Tom nodded, looking nervous, then shut his door quick. What was she telling him? Was she trying to get him on her side? I wrote it down, Linda bossing Mr. Tom 10:15a.m. Later that day, I saw her with Mrs. Carter, the nice lady with the dog treats. Linda was waving her arms, her clipboard flapping like a bird. Mrs. Carter frowned and kept glancing at my house. When Linda left, I waved at Mrs. Carter like always, but she didn't wave back. She just shook her head and went inside. My heart sank a little. Linda was turning my friends against me, one by one. I added it to my notebook, Mrs. Carter looks mad 3 p.m. Then came the big clue. It was a sunny afternoon, and I was raking leaves in my yard. The air smelled like fall, crisp and cool, and Buddy was chasing a squirrel up a tree. I heard footsteps, slow and sneaky, and peeked over my shoulder. Linda was back, standing right by my fence. She wasn't taking pictures this time, she was on her phone, talking real quiet. I dropped my rake and ducked behind a bush, holding my breath. Yes, she whispered into the phone. He's still not listening. It's time to move. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. Move what? My ears perked up like Buddy's when he hears the treat jar. She kept talking, her voice so low I could barely hear. We'll show him, she said. He won't know what hit him. Then she hung up and slipped the phone in her pocket. She stood there a second, staring at my fence with that smirk again, then walked off. I stayed behind the bush, my heart thumping loud. Tomorrow. Show me? What was she planning? My pencil flew across my notebook. Linda on phone says tomorrow 4:30 p.m. I looked at Buddy and whispered, she's got something big coming, boy. Real big. He barked, like he was ready to fight. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my couch, my notebook open, reading all my little clues. Pictures. Notes. Talking to neighbors. Phone calls. Tomorrow. It was like a puzzle, and I was starting to see the pieces fit together. Linda wasn't just mad about my fence, she was building up to something huge. Something to make me regret it, like she promised. But what? Paint my fence herself? Kick me out? Call the cops? My tummy twisted just thinking about it. I looked out my window at the dark street. The moon was big and round, shining on my blue fence. It still looked awesome to me, bright and happy, even with Linda being so mean. I wasn't going to let her win. No way. See, that's where my secret came in. Linda thought I was just some regular guy, easy to push around. But I wasn't. I had something up my sleeve, something she'd never guess in a million years. And every sneaky thing she did, every note and phone call, was bringing her closer to finding out. The next morning, I woke up early. The sun was just peeking up, turning the sky pink and orange. I made some toast and sat by the window, my notebook ready. Whatever Linda was planning for tomorrow, which was today, I was going to be ready. I watched the street, sipping my juice, waiting for her next move. Buddy sat next to me, his ears up, like he knew something was coming too. The air felt heavy, like before a big rain. Linda was out there, plotting. But I was plotting too. And then I saw it, a little hint of what was next. A white van rolled down the street, slow and quiet, and stopped right in front of my house. 2 guys got out, carrying paint cans. White paint cans. My eyes went wide. Was this it? Was Linda sending them to paint over my fence? I jumped up, ready to run outside, but then I stopped. I had to be smart. I grabbed my notebook and wrote, white van paint, 7A.M. This was big. This was Linda's move. But I had a move too, and it was coming soon. What was Linda really up to? Why the van? And what was my secret that could stop her? Oh, it's all bubbling up now, ready to burst. The story's getting wilder, and I've got more to tell. Stick with me, it's about to get really good. Okay, hold on tight, because this is where everything goes boom. It was Friday morning, a regular, sunny Friday, and I was just chilling in my kitchen. I had a big mug of coffee in my hands, steaming hot, and I was taking little sips while Buddy snoozed by my feet. My blue fence was sparkling outside the window, looking as awesome as ever. I was thinking about maybe tossing a ball for Buddy later or eating some pancakes, just a normal day, right? Wrong. Things were about to get crazy, and I mean crazy. All of a sudden, I heard this loud noise, wee-oh-oh, wee-oh-oh. Sirens. My ears perked up, and I spilled a little coffee on my shirt. Whoa, what's that? I said to Buddy. He jumped up, barking like crazy, his tail wagging fast. I ran to the window and peeked out, my heart thumping. 2 cop cars, big ones with flashing red and blue lights, rolled down the street. I thought, oh no, what's happening? But then I saw something wild. They didn't stop at my house. Nope. They pulled right up to Linda's place, just across the street. I rubbed my eyes to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Cop cars at Linda's? This was big. I grabbed my coffee mug, still half full, and stepped outside onto my porch, all confused. My slippers flopped on the wood, and Buddy followed me, sniffing the air. That's when I saw her, Linda Grayson herself, storming out her front door like a tornado. She had her phone pressed to her ear, yelling so loud I could hear every word. Yes, 911? This is an emergency, she shouted. My neighbor's fence is ruining our property values. You need to come now. I blinked. Wait a minute, was she calling the cops on me? Over my fence? Again. I almost laughed, but then I saw something even crazier. Linda was so busy yelling into her phone, she didn't notice the 2 cops walking up behind her. They were big guys in blue uniforms, with shiny badges and serious faces. One of them cleared his throat real loud, ahem, and Linda jumped like a cat on a hot stove. She spun around, still holding her phone tight, and snapped, "What? I'm busy." Her voice was sharp, like she was mad they were bothering her. The cop didn't even blink. He stood tall and said, "Linda Grayson." She glared at him, her eyes all squinted. "Yes, that's me." "What do you want?" she barked. The officer's face stayed calm, like he'd heard that tone a million times. "Ma'am," he said, slow and clear, "we're not here about offense. We've got a warrant for your arrest." Linda's mouth opened, like she was going to yell again, but then she froze. "Eh, what?" she squeaked. The cop kept going. "Embezzlement from the HOA funds," he said. "Over $20,000 missing. You're coming with us." Her jaw dropped all the way down to the ground. Her phone slipped a little in her hand, and she just stood there, staring at the cops like they'd grown 2 heads. I was standing on my porch, watching it all, and my jaw dropped too, but for a totally different reason. See, this wasn't just some random surprise. This was my surprise. Linda thought she was the big boss, calling 911 on me, but she had no idea the cops were already there for her. And guess what? I knew why. Here's the big secret, ready? I'm not just Jake Riley, regular guy with a cool fence and a goofy dog. Nope. I'm Jake Riley, private investigator. That's right, I'm a detective, like in those mystery books where someone solves crimes with a magnifying glass. I don't have a magnifying glass, but I've got something better, sneaky skills and a sharp brain. A few neighbors, Mr. Tom and Mrs. Carter, had come to me weeks ago, all quiet and worried. "Jake," they said, "we think Linda's up to no good. Money's missing from the HOA. Can you help?" I said, "Sure, I'll check it out." But I couldn't just walk up to Linda and say, "Hey, are you stealing?" She'd never tell me. So, I came up with a plan, a super sneaky one. That blue fence? It wasn't just because I like blue. It was bait like a worm on a fishing hook to keep Linda distracted. I knew she'd freak out about it, chasing me with her clipboard and rules, while I dug into her shady little empire. And oh boy, did it work. See, while Linda was busy snapping pictures and leaving notes, I was busy too. I'd sneak around at night, checking papers she threw out in her trash. Yucky, but worth it. I found receipts for big trips, fancy clothes, even a shiny new car, all stuff the HOA money paid for. I talked to neighbors, wrote down clues, and sent everything to the police. That $20,000 missing? It wasn't missing, it was in Linda's bank account, paying for her big, greedy life. I'd been building a case, quiet as a mouse, and now it was all coming out. Back on the street, Linda was still frozen, her phone dangling in her hand. "This is a mistake," she yelled at the cops. "I didn't do anything. It's that fence guy, arrest him." She pointed at me, her finger shaking. The cop shook his head. "No mistake, ma'am," he said. "We've got proof, lots of it." He pulled out handcuffs, shiny silver ones, and snapped them on her wrists. Click, click. Linda's face turned red, then white, then red again, like a stoplight gone wild. "You can't do this," she screeched. "I'm the HOA president." The other cop smirked a little. "Not anymore," he said. "Come on, let's go." They started walking her to the car, but Linda kept fighting, dragging her feet. "This is all his fault," she shouted, glaring at me across the street. "That stupid blue fence." I just stood there on my porch, sipping my coffee, trying not to laugh. Buddy barked at her, like he was saying, "Bye-bye, Linda." My jaw was still dropped, not because I was shocked, but because it felt so good. All those days of her bossing me around, leaving notes, calling painters, it was over. My plan worked perfectly. The neighbors started peeking out their doors, watching as the cops pushed Linda into the back of the car. Her fancy hair was all messy now, and her clipboard fell to the ground with a clatter. She looked so small, not like the big, mean queen she thought she was. I couldn't help it, I waved at her, nice and slow, with a big grin. "Have a good day, Linda," I called. Her eyes got huge, and she banged on the car window. You did this," she yelled, but the cops just shut the door. The sirens started again, wee-oh-oh, and they drove off, Linda's mad face disappearing down the street. I took a big sip of coffee and leaned against my porch railing. The sun was higher now, shining on my blue fence like a spotlight. It looked even better today, like it was proud of itself. Buddy ran around the yard, barking and jumping, like he knew we'd won. And we had won. Linda thought she could scare me, trick me, make me change my fence. But I tricked her instead, and now she was gone off to face the mess she'd made. The best part? That fence wasn't just bait, it was mine, and I loved it. Every time Linda yelled about it, she was digging her own hole, and I was filling it with clues. I'd been quiet, sneaky, watching her every move, and now the truth was out. She wasn't the boss anymore, I was the hero of the street. Well, me and my fence. The neighbors started coming outside now, whispering to each other. Mr. Tom walked over, his hands in his pockets. "Jake," he said, "did you do this?" I grinned and nodded. "Yup. She was stealing from us, all of us. I just helped the cops catch her." His eyes got wide. "Wow," he said. "You're like a secret agent." I laughed. "Something like that." Mrs. Carter came over too, holding a bag of dog treats. "I'm sorry I didn't wave back," she said. "Linda scared me. But you're amazing, Jake." She gave Buddy a treat, and he wagged his tail like crazy. I looked around at my street, quiet again, but a good quiet this time. Linda was gone, her mean rules were done, and my blue fence stood tall. It wasn't just a fence anymore, it was a winner. And me? I wasn't just Jake Riley, regular guy. I was Jake Riley, the guy who took down the HOA bully with a can of paint and a big secret. How cool is that? Okay, here we go, the part where everything gets fixed and feels awesome. Picture this: Linda was standing there on her front lawn, her hands behind her back, and the cops were snapping shiny silver handcuffs on her wrists. Click, click. Her face turned super red, like a big ripe apple, and she looked so mad I thought steam might come out of her ears. "This is outrageous," she screeched, her voice loud and squeaky, like a bird that got its feathers ruffled. She glared right at me, her eyes sharp and mean, and pointed with her chin since her hands were stuck. "You did this," she yelled, hopping a little like she wanted to charge at me. I was still on my porch, holding my coffee mug, watching it all go down. Buddy was next to me, his tail wagging slow, like he wasn't sure if he should bark or just watch. I didn't yell back at Linda, I didn't need to. I just smiled, nice and calm, and said, "No, Linda, you did this. I just painted a fence." My voice was quiet, but it felt big, like it carried across the whole street. Linda's mouth opened, like she wanted to argue, but then the cop tugged her arm gently and said, "Let's go, ma'am." She huffed, but she couldn't do anything about it. She was caught. The neighbors started coming out of their houses now, like ants peeking out of a hill after the rain stops. They gathered on their porches and lawns, whispering to each other, their eyes big and curious. Mr. Tom was there, scratching his head. Mrs. Carter stood by her door, holding her little dog tight. Even the kids who rode bikes stopped pedaling and stared. They were all watching as the truth sank in: Linda wasn't the bossy queen she pretended to be. She'd been sneaky, really sneaky, and not in a fun way. Turns out, Linda had been skimming dues for years. Skimming means she was taking little bits of money that didn't belong to her, like sneaking cookies from a jar when no one's looking, but way worse. See, the HOA dues are the money everyone pays to keep the neighborhood nice, like for fixing the playground or planting flowers by the sign. It's our money, all of ours. But Linda? She'd been grabbing handfuls of it for herself. She used it to go on fancy vacations, big trips to beaches with umbrellas in her drinks. She bought new cars, shiny ones that sparkled in her driveway. She even got piles of fancy clothes, like dresses and shoes she didn't need. All that stuff? Paid for with our dime. Can you believe it? She thought no one would notice, but she was so wrong. As the cop car started its engine rumble, Linda kept yelling through the window. "This isn't fair. I'm innocent," she shouted, but her voice got smaller as the car rolled away. The sirens didn't even turn on this time, just a quiet drive down the street, taking her out of our lives. I stood there, watching the car disappear around the corner, and something funny happened. The street felt lighter, like someone opened a window and let a big, happy breeze blow through. All that heavy, grumpy feeling Linda brought with her? Gone. Poof. Just like that. I took a sip of my coffee. It was cold now, but I didn't care. Buddy barked once, then ran into the yard, chasing his tail like he was celebrating. I laughed and set my mug down on the porch railing. The neighbors weren't whispering anymore, they were talking loud, walking over to each other, smiling even. A few folks started heading my way, their faces all surprised and happy. Mr. Tom got to me first. "Jake," he said, his voice shaky, "is it true? Linda's been stealing?" I nodded, leaning on the railing. "Yup," I said. "For years. She thought she could hide it, but I found out." Mrs. Carter came over next, her little dog yipping in her arms. "Jake, you're a hero," she said, her eyes twinkling. "I'm so sorry I listened to her. She said you were trouble, but she was the trouble all along." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a dog treat for Buddy. He gobbled it up, his tail wagging like a windshield wiper. "Thanks, Mrs. Carter," I said, grinning. "It's okay." She fooled a lot of people. Then this guy Mike, who lived down the street, yelled from his yard, "Keep the blue fence, man, it's awesome." His voice was loud and happy, and a couple other folks laughed and clapped. "Yeah, keep it," a lady shouted. I waved at them, my cheeks getting a little warm. "Thanks," I called back. "I like it too." My fence, my bright, happy, blue fence, was still standing tall, shining in the sun like it knew it had won. I looked around at everyone's smiling faces, waving hands, kids starting to ride their bikes again. The street didn't just feel lighter, it felt better. Like we'd all been holding our breath, waiting for something to change, and now we could breathe easy. Linda was gone, off to face the cops and the mess she'd made. And me? I'd made sure justice was served one brush stroke at a time. That blue paint wasn't just a color, it was my sneaky way to catch her, and it worked like magic. Later that day, a few neighbors came over to my porch. They brought cookies and lemonade, yum, and we sat around talking. "How'd you do it, Jake?" Mr. Tom asked, munching a chocolate chip cookie. I leaned back in my chair and told them the short version. I'm a private investigator, I said. Some of you asked me to check on Linda, so I did. The fence was a trick to keep her busy while I found proof. Their mouths dropped open. No way. Mike said. You're like a superhero. I laughed. Not, just a guy with a paint can and a plan. Mrs. Carter shook her head, amazed. She was so mean about that fence, she said. But it saved us. I nodded. Yup. Every time she yelled at me, I was digging up more clues. She didn't know she was helping me catch her. We all laughed, and Buddy barked, like he wanted to join the fun. The lemonade tasted extra sweet that day, and the cookies were warm and gooey. It felt like a party, a Linda's Gone party, and my blue fence was the star. By afternoon, word spread fast. More neighbors stopped by, saying thanks and patting me on the back. One kid, a little girl with pigtails, ran up and said, I like your fence, mister. It's pretty. I grinned and gave her a high five. Thanks, kiddo. Me too. Even the grumpy old guy from the corner, Mr. Hank, shuffled over. He never talked to anyone, but he looked at my fence and mumbled, good job, kid. Then he shuffled away. Wow, that was big. As the sun started to set, turning the sky all pink and orange, I sat on my porch steps with Buddy. The street was alive again, kids laughing, dogs barking, folks chatting over fences. No more whispers, no more mean notes. The HOA was getting a fresh start, someone new would take over, someone nice who wouldn't steal. Linda's shady little tricks were done, and we all knew the truth now. She'd tried to boss us around, scare us, make us follow her silly rules. But she lost, and we won together. I looked at my fence, glowing in the sunset. Every blue board felt like a little piece of justice. I'd painted it to trick Linda, sure, but now it was more than that. It was a sign that we weren't afraid anymore, that we could stand up and make things right. Good job, fence, I said, patting Buddy's head. He licked my hand, like he agreed. The next day, things kept getting better. A lady from down the street brought me a pineapple, my favorite. Thanks for saving our money, Jake, she said. I shared it with Mr. Tom and Mrs. Carter, and we laughed about how Linda must be mad in jail, missing her fancy cars. Someone even put up a sign by the playground that said, new HOA fair and fun. No more Linda rules, just good stuff for everyone. Days turned into weeks, and the neighborhood felt like home again, better than before. My fence stayed blue, bright, and proud. People waved at me now, big happy waves, and Buddy got extra treats wherever we went. Justice wasn't just served, it was a big, happy party, and I'd helped make it happen. One brush stroke at a time, I turned Linda's mean game into our big win. How awesome is that? Okay, we're at the end now. Wow, what a ride. Let's sit down for a minute and think about this crazy story. I've got my coffee mug empty now, but that's okay, and Buddy's curled up next to me, snoring a little. My blue fence is still out there, shining in the sun, and the street's all happy and calm again. Linda's gone, justice is done, and everyone's smiling. But before we say goodbye, let's talk about what this all means. What's the lesson here? What can we take away from this wild adventure? Oh, I've got some ideas, and I bet you do too. So, here's the big thing I learned: sometimes, the loudest people are hiding the biggest secrets. Think about Linda, she was always yelling, waving her clipboard, acting like she was the boss of everything. She'd stomp around, telling me to change my fence, leaving notes, calling people to complain. She was loud, 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 like a big noisy bell ringing all the time. But why was she so loud? Because she didn't want anyone to look too close. She had a secret, a sneaky, naughty secret. All that money she took from the HOA? She hid it behind her big voice and mean glares. The louder she got, the more she was trying to keep us from seeing the truth. Isn't that funny? You'd think someone loud and bossy would be strong, right? Like they've got nothing to hide. But nope. Linda was loud because she was scared we'd find out what she was really doing. She thought if she shouted enough, pointed at my fence enough, we'd all just do what she said and never ask questions. But secrets don't stay hidden forever, do they? Not when someone's watching, waiting, and ready to shine a light on them. And that's where I come in, the guy with the bright blue fence. Me, Jake Riley, just a regular guy with a goofy dog and a paint can. Or so Linda thought. She saw my fence and got mad, thinking I was some troublemaker breaking her rules. She didn't know I was more than that. She didn't know I was a private investigator with a sneaky plan. That blue fence? It wasn't just pretty, it was my trick, my bait, my way to keep her busy while I figured out her game. And guess what? It worked. The guy with the bright blue fence brought it all crashing down. Linda's mean rules, her sneaky stealing, her big, loud lies. Crash, boom, done. So, what's the lesson there? Maybe it's this: don't judge people by how they look or how loud they are. Linda judged me. She saw a guy with a silly fence and thought, he's nothing. I can boss him around. But I wasn't nothing, I was the one who stopped her. And the neighbors? They judged me too at first, whispering and hiding when Linda pointed at me. But in the end, they saw the real me, the guy who helped them, who made things right. Sometimes, the quiet ones, the ones who seem small or simple, are the ones with the biggest power inside. Like me and my fence, we didn't yell, but we won. That's pretty cool, right? It makes me think about you, yeah, you, reading this. Maybe you're quiet sometimes. Maybe you don't shout or wave a clipboard around. Maybe you've got a bright blue fence of your own, something you love that other people don't get. A hobby, a toy, a drawing, something that's you. Don't let the loud Lindas of the world tell you it's wrong. Don't let them boss you into changing it. Because you might just be the one who surprises everyone, who stands up and makes things better, even if you're not loud about it. You've got power inside you, big, awesome power, and it's waiting for the right moment to shine. I love that idea. It makes me smile, sitting here with Buddy, looking at my fence. This whole crazy story started with a can of paint and a grumpy lady, but it ended with justice and friends and a happy street. And it's not over, not really. I've got more stories where this came from, oh boy, do I? Crazy neighbors, epic twists, and all the good stuff you love. Like the time Mrs. Carter's dog dug up something wild in her yard, or when Mr. Tom tried to build a treehouse and accidentally started a war with the squirrels. Stick around, because I can't wait to tell you those tales too. Before we go, I've got a fun little job for you. Grab your pencil or your fingers if you're typing and tell me in the comments, what's the wildest thing a neighbor's ever done to you? Did they yell about your bike? Steal your ball? Leave weird stuff on your doorstep? I want to hear all about it. Your stories are the best, and I'll be reading every single one, laughing and nodding along. Maybe your neighbor was a Linda, or maybe you were the one with the sneaky plan. Spill it, I can't wait. This story's done, but it's not goodbye, it's see you next time. My blue fence is still here, Buddy's still snoring, and the neighborhood's buzzing with happy vibes. Linda's gone, justice won, and we all learned something big: the loudest voices don't always win, and the quiet ones like me, like you, can change everything. So keep being you, keep painting your fences bright, and never be afraid to stand up, even if it's just with a smile and a secret. You're awesome, and I'll see you soon for more fun. Bye for now. So, we were just talking about how cool it is that the quiet ones like me with my blue fence can surprise everyone and win the day. Let's dig a little deeper into that, because it's such a fun thing to think about. Linda was loud, oh boy, was she loud. She'd bang on my door, yell about rules, and march around like she owned the whole world. Every time she opened her mouth, it was like a big trumpet going toot toot toot. She wanted everyone to listen, to follow her, to be scared of her. And for a while, it worked. Neighbors hid, kids stayed away, and I got those mean notes on my mailbox. She thought being loud made her strong. But here's the sneaky truth: being loud doesn't mean you're right. Nope. Linda's big voice was like a mask. She wore it to hide all the naughty stuff she was doing. Stealing money, buying fancy things, lying to everyone, that's what she was really up to. She shouted so much because she didn't want us to peek behind that mask. It's like when you're playing hide and seek and you yell, "I'm not here," to trick your friends. Linda was playing that game, but with secrets instead of hiding spots. And guess what? I found her anyway. I wasn't loud, not one bit. I didn't yell back at Linda or stomp around with a clipboard of my own. I just painted my fence blue, smiled a little, and watched. I was quiet, sneaky, like a cat creeping up on a toy mouse. And that's what made me strong. I didn't need to shout. I had my secret, my investigator tricks, and my bright blue fence. Linda never saw it coming, and that's why I won. The guy with the fence, the quiet one, brought her big, loud world crashing down. Isn't that wild? It makes me think about other stuff too, like at school or at home. Have you ever met someone super loud? Maybe a kid in class who talks over everyone, or a grown-up who's always telling you what to do. They might seem big and tough, like they're in charge. But sometimes, the quiet kids, the ones who sit in the back, drawing or reading, are the ones with the best ideas. They don't need to yell because they've got something special inside, just waiting to come out. Maybe that's you. Maybe you've got a quiet power, like I did, ready to surprise the world. That's what I love about this story. It's not just about Linda or my fence. It's about all of us. You don't have to be the loudest to be the strongest. You don't have to wave your arms or make a big fuss. You can be yourself, quiet, silly, whatever, and still do amazing things. Like me painting that fence. It was just a little idea, hey, let's make it blue, but it turned into something huge. It caught Linda, saved the neighborhood, and made everyone happy again. One small brush stroke, one big win. So, what's your blue fence? What's that thing you love, even if other people don't get it? Maybe you like building stuff with blocks, or making up stories, or kicking a ball in a funny way. Maybe someone's told you it's weird or wrong, like Linda told me. Don't listen to them. Keep doing it, because that's your power. That's your trick to make the world better, even if it's just a little bit at a time. You don't need to shout, you just need to be you, and that's enough. I'm sitting here now, looking out at my yard, and it feels so good. The sun's shining, Buddy's dreaming about chasing squirrels, and my fence is still blue, bright and happy as ever. Linda's gone, off with the cops, and she's probably still mad about it. But me? I'm not mad. I'm proud. I stood up, sneaky and quiet, and made things right. And the neighbors? They're proud too. They wave at me now, bring me cookies, and say, "Jake, you're the best." It's like we're all a big team, and my fence is our flag, a flag of winning. That's another lesson, I think. When you do something good, it spreads. Like when you drop a pebble in a puddle and the ripples go out, bigger and bigger. My blue fence started as my idea, but it turned into everyone's victory. Mr. Tom's smiling again, Mrs. Carter's baking treats, and the kids are riding bikes without being scared. One little thing, one can of paint, made the whole street happier. You can do that too. Maybe you help a friend, or share a toy, or draw a picture for someone. It starts small, but it grows, and soon everyone's feeling the good vibes. I hope this story sticks with you, because it's not just a story, it's a way to think about life. Loud people like Linda might try to push you around, but you've got your own strength, your own fence to paint. Don't let them scare you. Be sneaky, be smart, be you, and watch how you can change things. I did it with a brush and some clues, and you can do it your way. Maybe you'll catch a bully, or help a friend, or just make someone laugh. Whatever it is, it's big, because it's yours. Oh, and guess what? This isn't the end, not really. I've got more stories to tell you, tons of them. Crazy neighbors, epic twists, all the fun stuff you love. Like the time the mailman got stuck in a tree, yep, a tree, or when Buddy found a mystery bone in the backyard. Stick around, because I'm not done yet. I'll keep sharing, and you keep reading, okay? We're a team now, you and me, and Buddy too. Before I go, let's do one last thing together. Grab something to write with, pencil, crayon, whatever, and tell me in the comments, what's the wildest thing a neighbor's ever done to you? Did they build something wacky? Yell about your dog? Leave you a funny note? I want all the details, spill it. I'll be sitting here, sipping new coffee, reading every word you send. Your stories are awesome, and they make me smile big. Maybe you've got a Linda in your life, or maybe you're the sneaky hero with a plan. Tell me, I can't wait to hear. So, that's it for now. My blue fence is waving goodbye or hello to the next adventure. The lesson's simple: loud doesn't mean strong, and quiet doesn't mean weak. You've got power, right inside you, waiting to shine. Paint your fence, chase your dreams, and don't let anyone stop you. You're amazing, and I'll see you next time for more crazy fun. Bye bye for now, keep being awesome.